Hey everyone. Ready for a deep dive into something pretty interesting?
I think so.
All right, good. We're going to be talking about shadow work today.
Ooh, I like this.
And I know that might sound kind of, mystical or something.
Yeah,
But it's really something that I think we all do, whether we realize it or not.
definitely.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're going to be drawing from a blog post by Brian Stafford.
Okay.
He is a practitioner of magic and divination.
Oh, wow.
So he actually uses shadow work in his practice.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and so, magic might not be for everyone, but his perspective on shadow work, I think, is really interesting and applicable to pretty much anyone.
I'm excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, so, before we jump into all the specifics of what shadow work is and what it looks like and all that,
Sure.
one of the things that Brian really emphasizes is the importance of separating our own energy from the energies around us. And he says that this is really important for clear thinking and decision making.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's about creating kind of like a boundary.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're constantly bombarded by other people's energy or the energy of a situation,
Yeah.
it can be really hard to think clearly and to make decisions that are aligned with, what you truly want.
I totally get that. It's like getting caught up in the noise.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all that static on the radio.
Yes.
You can't really hear the music.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's one of the big things he emphasizes.
So I'm curious, when we talk about shadow work,
Yeah.
what exactly are we talking about? Like, what is shadow work?
Basically, it's about acknowledging and integrating all aspects of ourselves.
Okay.
The good, the bad, and maybe the interesting.
So all the different parts of who we are.
Yeah, exactly. We're not just our highlight reel.
Right. Like we're complex beings with a whole range of emotions and thoughts and behaviors.
Right. And sometimes we try to kind of push those parts of ourselves away.
Oh, yeah, totally. We hide the things we don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, or the things that we think other people won't like. But Brian's saying that it's really important to kind of bring those parts of ourselves into the light.
So it's about accepting all of it.
Yeah, and he actually uses this really cool phrase. He calls it the Book of Mirrors.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about the importance of journaling as a way to kind of see ourselves more clearly.
I like that. The Book of Mirrors. It's a really powerful image.
Yeah.
So how does journaling help with this shadow work exactly?
Well, he talks about it as a way to kind of track our thoughts and feelings over time.
Okay.
So it's not just like, venting or writing down random things. It's about actually like analyzing those thoughts
Yeah.
and looking for patterns and trying to understand like why we think and feel the way we do.
So it's a way to get to know ourselves better.
Yeah, it's like becoming your own therapist in a way.
I can see that.
You can go back and look at your journal entries and see how you've evolved over time
That's interesting.
and what challenges you faced and how you've dealt with them.
It's almost like having a record of your own growth.
Yeah, exactly like that.
And he also talks about bucket lists,
Bucket lists, okay.
but not in the traditional sense.
Interesting. How so?
So, when we think of bucket lists, we usually think of like travel or experiences.
Sure, like skydiving or something.
Yeah, exactly. But he sees bucket lists as a reflection of our deepest values and aspirations.
Oh, I see. That's deeper.
Yeah. So it's about kind of looking at what you truly want to achieve and experience in life and using that as a way to understand your priorities and your motivations.
That makes sense. Like what really matters to you.
Yeah, it's less about swim with dolphins and more about like what makes your soul sing.
I love that.
Yeah. And then he also suggests writing down things that we dislike about ourselves.
That sounds a little scary.
Yeah, I know. It can be a little daunting, but he says it's really important to kind of be honest with ourselves.
About the areas where we might want to grow or change.
So it's not about beating ourselves up. It's more about identifying areas for growth.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So it's about turning those shadows into opportunities for growth.
I see.
And remember, it's not about becoming someone else entirely.
Right.
It's about becoming the best and most authentic version of ourselves.
So embracing all those different parts of ourselves?
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this connects to the idea of magic and energy work.
Yeah, and he actually talks a lot about how he uses shadow work in his practice.
Oh, I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, so he explains that understanding his own energy allows him to better sense other energies, which is really important for like accurate readings
Oh, wow.
and spell work.
That makes sense. Like you need to be aware of your own stuff before you can accurately perceive other energies.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating. So in a way, shadow work helps him to be more effective in his magical practice.
Yeah, and it also plays a big role in his work as a medium.
Really?
Yeah, so being attuned to his own energy helps him to distinguish the energy of spirits more accurately.
I can see how that would be crucial.
Yeah. So it's not just about self-awareness, it's also about becoming more powerful
Okay.
and intentional in our actions.
Interesting. So while Brian's practice might seem a bit out there for some people,
Sure.
he believes that everyone engages in shadow work to some degree, even if they don't call it that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point.
I agree. It makes this whole concept a lot more relatable. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Like, haven't you ever wondered why you reacted a certain way in a situation?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
try to figure out why you keep repeating the same patterns in your relationships.
Yes.
Those are all like little glimpses into our shadow selves.
It's so true.
Yeah, and shadow work just gives us a framework and some tools to kind of make that exploration
Okay.
a little bit more conscious and intentional.
So, you mentioned earlier that Brian mentioned that even things like therapy can be considered a form of shadow work. Like, how does that work?
Well, therapy can be a really powerful way to kind of delve into those shadows
Yeah.
in a safe and supportive environment
Right.
with the guidance of a trained professional.
Makes sense.
You can unpack past traumas, understand your emotional patterns,
Yeah.
develop healthier coping mechanisms.
So it's like having a guide to help you navigate that.
Totally.
Yeah?
It's like having a guide to help you navigate that inner landscape.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then also, what about those like everyday moments of self-reflection?
Oh, yeah.
When you catch yourself
Oh,
reacting
great.
in a way that you're not proud of.
Yeah,
Are those opportunities for shadow work too?
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
those are like those little gold nuggets
Yeah.
of like, oh, why did I react that way?
Mm.
Or what's going on inside of me that's causing this pattern to repeat? So it's like we're starting to become aware of those whispers
Right.
from our subconscious, those parts of ourselves that are trying to get our attention.
Yeah.
And, the more we practice this kind of self-awareness,
Uh-huh.
the more we can choose how we want to respond rather than just reacting automatically.
So it's about
Yeah,
having that agency.
totally.
Yeah.
It's like we become more conscious creators of our own experience.
So you mentioned that Brian calls himself a gray witch.
Yes.
Now, I have to admit, I don't really know what that means.
Okay,
So
so
could you explain that?
yeah, Brian explains that being a gray witch
Yeah.
means working with all kinds of energies, both light and dark.
Okay.
It's not about choosing one side or the other.
Right.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience.
So it's not about labeling certain energies as good or bad.
Exactly.
It's about understanding how to work with them responsibly.
Yeah, and I think he really emphasizes that this approach requires a deep understanding of one's own energy
Yeah.
and intentions
Yeah.
to ensure balance and avoid unintended consequences.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm starting to see how shadow work ties into this idea of gray witchcraft.
for sure.
It's about embracing the full complexity of who we are,
Absolutely.
shadows and all.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to one of the key benefits of shadow work, that personal empowerment.
Yeah.
By understanding our shadows, we can reclaim the energy that we've been spending on suppressing them or denying them.
Totally. It's like we free up all this energy
Yeah.
that we can then use for other things.
So even if someone isn't into magic
Sure.
or witchcraft,
Yeah.
these principles of like self-awareness,
Yeah.
energy management can still be so valuable
Absolutely.
in everyday life.
I mean, think about it. When we're more aware of our own triggers,
Mm-hmm.
biases, emotional patterns,
Yeah.
we can navigate our relationships, our conflicts, even our everyday challenges
Right.
with more grace, more understanding.
Yeah.
We become less reactive and more intentional in our interactions.
It's like we're developing a user manual for our own mind
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
and emotions.
Yeah, and just like any skill,
Right.
the more we practice shadow work,
Mm-hmm.
the more proficient we become at understanding and managing our inner world.
And you mentioned that Brian offers some great resources on his websites for people who want to dive deeper.
He does.
What kind of things does he have?
So he has a variety of resources, including journaling exercises,
Okay.
prompts for self-reflection,
Yeah.
even guided meditations.
Oh, cool.
These tools can be so helpful for anyone starting their shadow work journey
Right.
because they provide a structured approach
I like that.
to exploring those hidden parts of ourselves.
It's like he's giving us a flashlight
Exactly.
to illuminate those shadowy corners of our being.
Yes.
So where do we even begin?
Mm.
What's a good first step for someone who's curious about shadow work,
Yeah.
but maybe a little intimidated?
I think it's important to remember that shadow work is really a process of self-discovery,
Okay.
not self-judgment.
So it's about being curious,
Exactly.
not critical.
Yeah, it's like being a kind and patient friend to yourself,
Right.
even when we encounter those parts that we might not initially like or understand.
Okay, so practically speaking,
Yeah.
what are some things people can do to start exploring their shadows?
Well, I think starting with something simple like journaling can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Taking a few minutes each day to reflect on your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences.
So, like, what kinds of things should they be writing about?
Yeah, you can ask yourself questions like, what triggered me today? Or what patterns am I noticing in my behaviors?
Those are good ones.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment either.
Right.
Even just 5 or 10 minutes of reflection can make a big difference.
I like that.
And remember, there's no right or wrong way to do shadow work.
Yeah.
It's a personal journey. And what works for one person might not work for another.
Makes sense.
So the key is to find those tools and techniques that resonate with you.
Right.
And then use them to explore your inner world.
Yeah, Brian also mentioned that even like everyday experiences can be opportunities for shadow work.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just sitting down with a journal.
Yeah, I mean, every interaction,
Right.
every challenge, every moment of joy or frustration can teach us something about ourselves.
If we're paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's about being present
Uh-huh.
and noticing those things.
Be mindful of our reactions, our thoughts, our patterns.
Right.
Hmm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on shadow work,
Yes.
what is like one key takeaway that
Mhm.
you'd want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that shadow work is an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery
Yeah,
and personal empowerment.
makes sense.
It's about getting to know ourselves more deeply,
Mm-hmm.
shadows and all, and using that knowledge to create a more authentic and fulfilling life.
I like that.
And remember,
Yeah.
you're not alone on this journey.
Right.
There are resources, communities, and practices that can support you every step of the way.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, Brian Stafford's insights have been truly illuminating.
Yeah.
I encourage you to check out his website if you're interested in learning more.
Great idea.
And as you continue your own exploration of shadow work, approach yourself with kindness,
Yes.
curiosity.
Your shadows are not your enemy.
Right.
They're a part of you that's waiting to be understood
Mm.
and integrated.
So Brian suggests that we all engage in shadow work in some way, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
What aspects of your life could be considered shadow work?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder.
Yeah, what hidden parts of yourself are you ready to explore?
Embrace your shadows and let them guide you toward a more authentic and fulfilling life.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into shadow work.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep embracing the fullness of who you are.
Absolutely.